All right, let's dive into some seriously cool AI stuff.
Yeah.
You guys have given us some fascinating material, and we're ready to unpack it all with you. We're going to be looking at three main areas today: multimodal AI, deepfakes, and sustainable AI practices. And it's not just about the tech itself.
Hmm.
You know, it's about how this stuff is going to actually impact our world, like on a real level.
Definitely. And these areas we're going to talk about, they represent, incredible innovation, but they also bring up some, some really big questions about society and ethics too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's kick things off with multimodal AI. I was reading about this AI that can like analyze what's in your fridge, through a camera,
Oh, wow.
and then suggest recipes based on
Hmm.
like what you have on hand.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal chef who also knows how to read your pantry.
That's such a good example of how multimodal AI is it's really like mimicking how humans think by combining different types of information. Like in that example you just gave, it's using visual data from the camera and then textual data from, all those recipes, and it goes way beyond just voice commands.
Right, and it's not just like future tech, right?
Yeah.
The research is showing that there's already been some serious progress. I was reading about Metaspirit LM, and it
Yeah.
just blew me away. It's mixing text and speech inputs without, without even converting between them first.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about it. They've completely removed that intermediary step. And by processing, but the words and the tone, it's becoming so much more like a natural conversation. It's not just understanding what you're saying, but like how you're saying it.
Yeah, totally. And then there's Microsoft's Omni Parser too.
Mhm.
This AI is learning how to understand and actually use all those little elements, of a desktop user interface. I mean, think about the possibilities for accessibility here. This is huge.
Yeah, the potential impact for people with disabilities it's massive. Imagine anyone being able to control their computer with just voice commands and gestures, no matter what their physical abilities are.
That's amazing. And Google DeepMind's OmniXR, it's also kind of pushing the boundaries here with multimodal AI. It's all about getting AI to reason across different modalities, like connecting, visual cues with language.
The challenge they're really working on is getting that AI to perform well across all those different modalities. It's still early, but the progress they've made is, yeah, it's really exciting.
And even with all those challenges, we're already seeing these business applications popping up everywhere, right? I mean, we're talking chat bots that can read your facial expressions, healthcare systems that combine like medical imaging with patient history, and even self-driving cars. They can process data from cameras, LiDAR, radar, road signs, like all at the same time.
It's crazy, and we're seeing it across industries too. Security systems are becoming so much more comprehensive, and personalized advertising is getting super targeted. I mean, the market for this technology is just growing like crazy.
Okay, so this all sounds like a pretty brave new world.
Yeah.
But what about the potential downsides to all this? I mean, all this data integration, all this processing, it's got to raise some concerns, right?
Yeah, you're definitely hitting on some really important points. I mean, we have to think about the technical challenges of actually combining these different types of data and how to do it effectively. And then, of course, there's the question of privacy, right? How do we make sure that these systems are handling our personal information responsibly? It's a big one.
And let's not forget about all the computing power that this requires. I mean, isn't there a concern about, like the energy consumption of all these massive AI systems?
Absolutely. It takes a ton of energy to process all that data, which
Yeah.
leads us right into the topic of sustainable AI. It's amazing to see all these advancements, but we just can't ignore the impact it has on the environment. We have to figure that part out.
The research I've seen on this it's pretty alarming. One report said that training just a single AI model can produce the same CO2 emissions as several households, over their entire lifespan.
Oh, wow.
It's a crazy statistic that really highlights how urgent it is that we start developing more sustainable practices, for AI. I mean, thankfully, it looks like there are some promising initiatives that have already started.
Yeah, there are.
So, like, what are those? Are there ways to, like, make the models themselves more efficient?
Yeah, a lot of researchers are working on ways to optimize those algorithms so they need less power, less computational power. And we're starting to see some really cool new hardware that's being developed specifically for AI, like neuromorphic chips. They actually mimic the way the human brain works. And then there are FPGAs, which can be reconfigured to perform specific AI tasks way more efficiently.
That's awesome. But, I mean, the problem's bigger than just, tweaking the technology, right? What about those massive data centers that are powering all of this AI?
Right, and that's why there's such a big focus now on powering all these AI operations with renewable energy. A lot of companies are investing in solar and wind power specifically for their data centers. And some of them are even scheduling their training processes to happen when renewable energy is, most readily available.
So it's not just about making the AI more efficient, it's about changing the entire infrastructure behind it too.
Exactly. And there's also this push towards edge computing, which is basically bringing that AI processing closer to the data source, which means you don't need to transfer as much data to those massive data centers. It's like having a mini data center right in your pocket.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty cool.
So, okay, so we've got these energy efficient model, this new hardware, renewable energy sources, and edge computing. It sounds like a pretty multi-pronged approach. But what about the bigger picture here? Like, what role do governments and big corporations play in all of this?
Well, we're starting to see governments implement policies that encourage these sustainable AI practices, and they're setting targets to reduce carbon emissions from AI. And a lot of the big tech companies, they're actually making commitments to be carbon neutral, so they're investing in eco-friendly data centers and, making sure their supply chains are sustainable, that kind of thing.
So, it sounds like there's a growing awareness that this is a shared responsibility, which is a good sign. But what about the potential for AI to be used, in harmful ways? We've all heard about deep fakes, and I mean, the threat that they pose is pretty real, especially with elections coming up.
Oh, definitely. Deepfakes are a huge concern. The ability to manipulate media that convincingly, it can really impact trust, and democratic processes. And it's getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's fake online, especially with all these tools like Daily and Midjourney becoming so accessible to anyone.
It's pretty disturbing to think that anyone with an internet connection can create these realistic deep fakes. So like what kind of consequences are we actually talking about here?
Well, the potential for spreading misinformation and manipulating, public opinion is just huge. Imagine deepfakes being used to make up statements from political candidates or to create false narratives that could, incite violence. It's a scary thought.
It is. It's like something straight out of a dystopian novel. But are there ways to, fight back against these dangers?
There are several different approaches that people are exploring. One is developing technology that can actually detect deepfakes. So researchers are using machine learning to try and identify those little inconsistencies that might give away a fake, like unnatural eye movements or weird lighting, things like that.
It's like having a digital detective on the case. What other solutions are there?
Another approach is to embed watermarks or digital signatures into original content so you can verify that it's authentic. That way, platforms and viewers could easily tell, the difference between real media and something that's been manipulated.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
But isn't part of the problem that, people are just too trusting of what they see online these days?
Oh, for sure. And that's why media literacy is so important. We need to educate people about, how these deepfakes are made, how to spot them, and what kind of harm they can actually cause. It's all about empowering people to think critically and, question what they see online. Don't just take everything at face value.
So it's not just about the technology, it's about, education and critical thinking skills too.
Exactly. And there's this growing conversation about the need for ethical guidelines, for creators who use AI to generate content. Transparency and consent are really important here. If someone's, image or their voice is being used in a deepfake, they should at least know about it and give their consent.
It's like getting permission to use someone's photo.
Exactly. And then there's the whole question of industry standards and regulations. I mean, social media platforms and these tech companies, they have a responsibility to set clear policies against the misuse of deepfakes, right? And governments might need to think about new laws to address this, this emerging threat.
So it sounds like what we need is kind of a multi-pronged approach, involving tech solutions and ethical guidelines, education, and even, yeah, potentially some legal frameworks.
You got it. This is all pretty uncharted territory, and it's going to take a collaborative effort from everyone, from the people developing the tech to policymakers, educators, and the public to figure out how to navigate this effectively.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Well, we've covered a ton of ground here, from the mind-blowing potential of multimodal AI to the challenges of these deepfakes and this urgent need for sustainable AI practices. It's pretty clear that we're living in a time of crazy technological change. But what does it all mean for us as, like individuals? How can we make sure that AI is actually being used for good and not for, harmful purposes?
Yeah, that's a question we all need to be asking ourselves, right? I think it all starts with awareness. The more we understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to participate in these discussions about how it's developed and how it's used.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. And it's not just about the technical side of things. We need to understand the ethical and social and, yeah, the economic implications of AI too.
Exactly. We really need to think critically about the potential consequences of these technologies and be proactive in shaping a future where AI benefits everyone, all of humanity.
It's a collective responsibility,
Yeah.
really. We all play a part in making sure that AI is developed and used in a way that aligns with our values.
I couldn't agree more. Whether it's advocating for responsible AI policies or supporting research into ethical development of AI, or even just staying informed and having conversations like this one, we can all make a difference.
Well said.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, which is that incredible business potential of multimodal AI. I mean, it's huge.
Right. It's already transforming so many industries, and we're just scratching the surface. As these systems become more sophisticated and more integrated into our lives, the possibilities are pretty much limitless.
It's mind-blowing to think about how it could, you know, revolutionize everything from healthcare and education to transportation and entertainment. It's crazy.
Imagine a world where AI can personalize your learning based on your own needs and learning style, or where doctors can use AI to diagnose diseases way earlier and more accurately.
Or where self-driving cars can navigate, these complex environments and make transportation safer and, more efficient. The potential really is staggering.
Mm.
But with all this talk of AI's potential, it's easy to get caught up in the hype and, maybe overlook some of the challenges.
Oh, for sure. We need to be realistic about the limitations of AI and remember that it's not like a magic solution for every problem.
Exactly. AI is a tool, and
Mhm.
like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to make sure that it's used responsibly and ethically, and
Yeah.
that's the key.
You got it. So let's talk about some of the specific challenges that come with developing and deploying these really powerful AI systems. One of the biggest hurdles with multimodal AI is just the sheer complexity of integrating all these different types of data. Each modality has its own unique characteristics and structure, so figuring out how to combine them seamlessly is a big technical challenge.
It's like trying to, put together a puzzle where all the pieces come from completely different puzzles.
That's a great analogy. And then there's the whole issue of data quality and consistency too. AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on, right? So if the data is biased, incomplete, or inconsistent, it can lead to some really inaccurate or even unfair
Yeah,
outcomes.
it's garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. And then there are all those considerations about how these systems are going to be used. As AI systems become more sophisticated, it raises all these important questions about appropriate use. How do we make sure that AI is used in a way that's aligned with society's values?
Yeah, these are some big questions, and I don't think there are any easy answers.
You're right. It's going to take ongoing dialogue and a lot of collaboration between the technologists, the policymakers, and the public to figure out how to navigate these really complex issues.
It really does sound like we're kind of on the brink of a new era here.
Hmm.
One where AI is going to play an increasingly important role in shaping our world.
Yeah, definitely. And it's an era that's full of both immense promise and some potential challenges. It's up to us to make wise choices and make sure that AI is used to create a better future for everyone.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to take a little break and gather our thoughts. We'll be right back to continue our exploration of this fascinating world of AI.
So, welcome back. I hope you had a minute to think about everything we've talked about so far with AI. I mean, the speed of these advancements is just wow.
It's a lot to absorb, for sure. We're talking about technologies that could completely reshape our lives in ways we can't even imagine yet.
Right. And as we continue talking about it, it's important to remember that AI isn't some separate force acting on its own. It's a reflection of us, our choices, our priorities, our values, all that.
Okay, so what does that mean for us then? How can we make sure that AI is actually used for good, not for bad?
I think that's the big question, isn't it? I think it starts with awareness. The more we understand about AI, the better prepared we'll be to participate in these conversations about its development and how it gets used.
I totally agree. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And it's not just about understanding the technical stuff. We need to get the ethical, social, and, yeah, the economic implications too.
You got it. We have to be thoughtful about the potential consequences of all this tech and work toward a future where AI benefits everyone, all of humanity.
It's a shared responsibility for sure.
Yeah.
Each of us has a role to play in making sure AI is developed and used in a way that, aligns with our values.
Couldn't agree more. Whether it's advocating for responsible AI policies, supporting ethical AI research, or even just, staying informed and having these kinds of conversations, we all contribute.
You mentioned the business potential of multimodal AI before. What are some of the most exciting applications you're seeing come out?
I mean, we're already seeing the impact across so many industries. Like in healthcare, for example, we're seeing multimodal AI being used to personalize treatment plans, combining data from medical imaging, genetic information, and even lifestyle factors to provide more precise and effective care.
Wow, that's amazing. Sounds like something out of science fiction.
Hmm.
What about other fields?
Oh, education is another area that's ripe for disruption. Imagine AI tutors that can adapt to each student's learning style, pace, their strengths and weaknesses. It could totally revolutionize how we learn, personalize education like never before.
It would be a game changer for so many students. It seems like the potential benefits are huge, but we can't ignore the potential problems, right?
Absolutely not. Like any powerful technology, there are risks involved.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges with multimodal AI is just managing all that data, the complexity of it, combining different types of data, each with its own structure, potential biases. It can lead to some unexpected consequences.
So it's not just about the tech, but also about the quality of the data and making sure it's representative of everyone when you're training these systems.
Exactly. If the data is skewed or incomplete, the results the AI produces could be inaccurate or even discriminatory. That's why good data governance and ethical data practices are so important in developing and deploying these AI systems.
It sounds like we have to be really careful about the data we feed these systems and make sure there aren't hidden biases in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have to be prepared for the unexpected, too. Sometimes AI systems can do things we didn't anticipate. They can have these unintended consequences. So continuous monitoring and evaluation are crucial.
So it's a constantly evolving landscape, which means we need to stay vigilant and be able to adapt. What about regulation? Do we need new laws to govern AI development and use?
That's a tough question. There are no easy answers. A lot of experts think that the laws and regulations we have now might not be enough for the unique challenges that AI poses. We're seeing more and more discussion about AI-specific regulations that would promote responsible innovation, but also protect individual rights and societal values.
It's like we're in uncharted territory, trying to make rules for technology that's changing faster than we can keep up.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a tricky balance, fostering innovation while also preventing harm. And it's a conversation that everyone needs to be a part of, from the tech folks and policymakers to ethicists and the general public.
So where do you think we'll see new regulations popping up? What are policymakers most concerned about?
Data privacy is a big one. As AI systems get smarter, they need access to more and more data, which raises a lot of concerns about, how that personal information is collected, stored, and used.
Yeah, that's a valid concern for sure. We've already seen plenty of data breaches and misuse. How can we make sure AI development doesn't make those problems worse?
That's where regulations like the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, are important. GDPR sets really strict rules about how personal data can be collected, processed, and stored, so it tries to give people more control over their own information.
So it's about finding that balance between the need for data and protecting people's right to privacy.
Exactly. Algorithmic bias is another big concern. If the data used to train AI is biased, the algorithms can actually make those biases worse, leading to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
We've seen that happen in things like hiring, lending, even in the criminal justice system. How can we prevent that?
Transparency and accountability are key. There's a big push for what's called explainable AI, which means making the decision-making processes of AI systems more transparent so we can actually understand them.
So it's not just knowing what decisions AI makes, but also understanding why it's making them.
Exactly. That way, we can identify and address potential biases more effectively. People are also working on techniques to audit AI systems to make sure they're operating fairly and ethically.
It seems like there's a lot of effort going into making sure AI is used responsibly. But when an AI system messes up, who's ultimately responsible? The developers, the companies, the users.
That's a million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's still being figured out. Determining liability in the context of AI is tricky, really complex. It's a gray area that legal experts and policymakers are still debating.
So there's no easy answer yet.
Not yet. But it's a conversation we need to have. As AI becomes more a part of our lives, we have to figure out who's accountable. What happens when a self-driving car crashes or an AI medical diagnosis is wrong? These are real-life situations we have to be ready for.
That's a good reminder that with great power comes great responsibility. And the power of AI is, well, pretty immense and growing fast.
For sure. And it's a power we need to use carefully, thoughtfully, and with a deep understanding of both its potential and its risks.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. It's clear we're at a turning point in history where the decisions we make about AI will affect generations to come.
Absolutely. AI's future isn't set in stone, you know. It's being shaped right now, and we all have a part in making sure it's a future we can be proud of.
Well said. Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something you said before about human values being important in shaping AI development and use. What does that actually look like in the real world? How do we make sure AI reflects our values and aspirations?
That's the key, isn't it? I think the first step is recognizing that AI isn't neutral. It reflects the values and biases of the people who created it. So we have to make sure the teams developing AI are diverse and representative of the people who will be affected by it.
That makes sense. If the people building AI don't reflect the diversity of the world, their biases could easily end up in the systems they're creating.
Exactly. We also need to be open and honest about the values we want AI to embody. Do we want AI that puts efficiency above fairness, profit above people, individualism over community? These are important questions we need to wrestle with.
So it's not just about the technical parts of AI, but also about ethics and the impact it has on society.
Precisely. We have to think about what kind of world we want to create with AI. Do we want one where AI takes away jobs and makes inequality worse? Or one where AI empowers people, boosts creativity, and helps everyone live better lives?
That's a good point. The future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we actively create through the choices we make today.
I couldn't have said it better myself. We have the power to shape AI's future, and it's a power we have to use wisely with a strong sense of responsibility.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into all things AI. It's been a wild ride so far.
It really has. Exploring all these cutting-edge advancements, the potential downsides, the ethical dilemmas AI brings up, it's fascinating.
Totally. We talk about how multimodal AI is like blurring the lines between human and machine capabilities and the whole problem of deepfakes and misinformation. And of course, the need to make AI development more sustainable.
Right. Right. We also dug into those big questions about regulation, who's responsible when things go wrong, and how human values need to guide the future of AI, all of that.
It's crazy to think that AI isn't just some futuristic concept anymore. It's already here. It's woven into our lives, affecting everything from how we work and learn to how we experience the world around us.
And it's moving so fast. That's why these conversations about its impact and where it's headed are more important than ever.
For sure. As we wrap up, I want to touch on something that keeps coming up, this idea that AI advancements are totally tied to their impact on society and the need to innovate responsibly.
You got it. AI doesn't exist in a bubble, right? It's all connected to our values, our priorities, the choices we make as a society.
It's not just about the algorithms, the code. It's about the human element, the ethical questions, the potential consequences of what we create.
Exactly. We need to move past all the hype and the fear surrounding AI and have real, honest conversations about what role it plays in shaping our future.
Okay, so what can we actually do as individuals to make sure AI is used for good and not for bad?
I think it starts with education, honestly. We need to equip ourselves, learn enough to understand the complexities of AI, how it might impact our lives. That's a good foundation.
So staying informed, reading up on the latest developments, having conversations like this one, it's all crucial.
For sure. We also need to be aware of our own digital footprint, how our data is used to train these AI systems.
Right. That means paying attention to privacy settings, actually reading those terms of service, all that stuff. We should be advocating for better data protection too.
Exactly. And there are so many organizations and initiatives out there working to promote responsible AI. We can support them too.
Like groups pushing for ethical guidelines, researching ways to reduce bias, and making sure AI benefits everyone.
Yeah. Supporting them through donations, volunteering, even just spreading the word. It all makes a difference.
It's actually empowering to realize that we're not just bystanders in this whole AI revolution, We have the power to shape it.
And it's a huge responsibility. We have to take it seriously because the choices we make today will affect the world we leave for future generations.
Okay, so as we wrap up our exploration here, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of optimism. I mean, AI has the potential to solve some of the world's biggest problems like climate change, healthcare disparities, all these huge issues.
It really does. But it's up to us to make sure it's used wisely, ethically, and benefits everyone, not just a select few.
So let's embrace these challenges and the opportunities of this AI-driven world. Let's commit to responsible innovation, to having thoughtful discussions, and working towards a better future together.
Love it. Remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create. And we can create a future where AI makes humanity better, improves our lives, and helps us build a world that's more just and sustainable.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI. We hope you learned something new, that it sparked your curiosity, and that you feel ready to help shape the future of this incredible technology.